Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning. We're gonna wait a few more minutes just for everyone to arrive. Welcome.
Ooh, it's warm over here. I might stay under my awning the whole time.
Where are you all?
In Philadelphia, in West Oak Lane.
I'm in North Carolina, humid.
Oh, I bet.
Thanks for joining us from North Carolina.
This is one of my bucket list things. You girls are getting me started here.
Oh, wow.
I've never grown anything in my life.
Today's a good day to start.
It is. I've got my air conditioner running in the background, so I'm just going to mute out here.
Okay.
No. So, Camille,
we're getting that feedback a little bit again. Say what you were saying again.
Okay, I'm just gonna. Oh, because I messed up. All right, so people are still arriving, so let's give everyone a few more minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if I mute you. How about now?
A lot of feedback. Right? Say something else.
Yeah, I'm gonna just stick with what was working.
Okay.
Because I was gonna try to turn off. So I'll turn off the video on my phone, and I'll just leave the video on my computer.
Okay.
And you can hear me, and there's no feedback.
Nope. It sounds great now.
Okay. Sorry, everybody, for troubleshooting with you. That's we have someone from Switzerland in the house, Tamia.
Oh, wonderful. What's the weather like in Switzerland? I have no idea whatsoever. Great weather.
Sunny.
Awesome. So we're tuning in with you guys today from Philadelphia/Darby, Pennsylvania, for anyone that doesn't know. So our weather here today is pretty nice so far. Still early, but it's heating up very quickly.
Supposed to be about 97 degrees. The first day of a heat wave. Okay.
Yeah.
We can probably start.
Okay. You good?
It looks like 11 people in the room. I don't have anyone waiting currently. So I'm ready to start whenever you are.
Okay, awesome. All right. So good morning, everybody. Good early afternoon, I guess I should say, for some folks. My name is Camille Coleman. I am one of the co-founders of Black Girls with Green Thumbs. I'll let my other co-founder, Latiana, introduce herself quickly for you guys also.
I'm also the other co-founder of Black Girls with Green Thumbs. My name is Latiana Tab, and we really appreciate all of you joining from wherever you are in the world. It's really exciting. I love that we are able to do this and be able to share these experiences with people that are not limited by location.
Yes, absolutely. So with this whole COVID-19 thing, we've had to switch a lot of our programming to an online platform, which presented some challenges. However, I think it's a beautiful thing that we're able to reach so many people from so many places. So I'm also really glad to have you guys here today. So a little bit about us for anyone that hasn't been following us for a while. Like I said, we are based out of Philadelphia and Darby in Pennsylvania. Black Girls with Green Thumbs was founded in 2016, and some of our primary goals are to reintroduce or to begin another renaissance of urban gardening in urban communities. So we have received different grants over time to be able to bring programming to people's homes, to libraries, to schools and community centers, and kind of just try to reconnect people in urban environments to growing their own food and their own herbs and different things like that. We've also kind of dabbled in doing a lot of community cooking classes as well. So we also teach people how to cook the things that grow at home and or in their community gardens.
And even if I know that we have some people that are brand new to gardening, so even if you've never gardened, like with our plant-based cooking, we just really want to emphasize, you know, health and wellness, and that we all can have control over our like health and wellness outcomes by making really specific and intentional choices.
Yeah, exactly. So like one of the benefits, beauty, in my opinion anyway, of home gardening is that it's not inclusive to anybody. You know, like anybody can benefit from this, whether you're, you know, male, female, old, young, whatever your demographics are. This can benefit everyone. For me personally, garden has been like this beautiful like struggle and exploration of being able to grow things from seed and just learn so much about myself in the process. So again, welcome everybody to our class today on how to start a kitchen window herb garden. So just to begin,
so I'm joining you.
Sorry, Latiana, go ahead.
That's okay. So I'm joining you from my patio. So right outside of my garden, but Pamia is in her home, so she is in a better environment for this activity that we are going to do today. So I'm going to turn it over to Pamia. She is going to lead our activity today. And actually, before we hop into it, those of you who are following along and plan to actually like start the garden and plant with us, if you don't have your video on, like put your video on and show us your layout.
I'm gonna scroll through really quickly so I can see if anybody is. Okay, so I don't have any videos up just yet, but that's fine. That some people are gonna just be following along.
Mary's showing us hers.
Oh, awesome. Great.
So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. So from personal experience, having an herb garden in my home, I've done it for years. I would say over the past like five to 6 years. It's been very beneficial for me and my family. And I honestly believe it's like one of the best things you can do to beautify your kitchen space and also to improve your personal health, right? So today we're kind of going to be talking about what kind of herb box works best for you and your home and how to set that up. So I'm going to give you guys a few examples of different types of boxes or planters that you can use in your window. So over time, I've had generally two different kinds. One is like your long window box that you can measure out on your own to kind of see which one will fit. So this is just like a physical example of one of the boxes that I'm going to be using today. Another option is also just doing a series of small like round planters like these. So you can have individual herbs growing in your windowsill as well. Latiana, did you want to show everybody the kind that you're using today?
Yes, I just need to unpin your video. So this is my little setup outdoors. So what I'm going to do is I know that there are a few people who are here that are actually using seed today and not like starter plants. So I'm going to join you and use seeds. So I have like a tin can, and I'm going to use this I'm just going to do like one because I have so many, and that's why I'm outside, because most of my herbs are outside on my front porch. So I'm just going to do one planter to do this, to work along with you all.
Thanks, La. So one of the reasons that we decided to do this class online today was because we would get a lot of emails and also direct messages on our Facebook and on our Instagram from followers who were really interested in learning how to garden, but many people may not have adequate space outside their house to be able to grow things that they would like to grow. So doing this window planter is a really good alternative to that. So for me personally, I always try to look for a space in your home that has adequate sunlight, right? That's one of the most important things. So I'm going to show you guys where I'm going to be placing my planter today. This is kind of like a south-facing window in my home. As you can see, it gets plenty of sunlight. And for your herbs, that's going to be very important, right? So at minimum, you want to let them have 6 hours of direct sunlight per day so that they, get good nutrients and that they grow properly. So one of the other things that I wanted to discuss with you guys is you have two options when you think about window planters, right? So as you're driving along, you might see different people that have planters on the outside of their homes. So if you're handy, this is definitely an option, right? If you have the ability to, to drill some hardware into the side of your home, if you own it and you're able to do that, by all means, I think that's a great thing to do. What we're going to be focusing on today, however, is doing it on the inside of your house, right? So these are for people that may live in apartments or, just may not have the ability to have their planter on the outside of their home. If you do decide to make your planter on the inside of your home and you do not have adequate sunlight, one of the other things you can do is get some LED lights, or they also have these things called HID lights. So each of them are a little bit different depending on what you're growing. But the LED lights is a really good solution if you live in a place that, say, for example, has very large trees outside where you're not able to get the type of sunlight that you need to grow your plants. I think I just saw someone had a question. Let me see if I can go back to that. Can you see it?
Yes. Is that best in the winter, the LED lights?
So yes. So obviously in the winter time we get not as much light as we get in the summer. So that's a good idea if you want to supplement the amount of light that your plants are getting, especially if they're still if you're just growing them from seed, or, if you just need some additional light. I actually have two different types of lights. If you go on Amazon, they do have these really cute lights that will clip to the side of a planter or a box. And they're really easy to kind of bend and shape to where your plants are. So yes, that is an option, and it's a really, really good idea. I will also tell you guys that you should consider, if you go that route, purchasing a timer so that you can actually manage the amount of time of light that your plants are getting. So most of these herbs, about 6 to 10 hours a day of light you're going to need. So if you work a schedule where you're kind of worried about your plants being exposed to too much light, you can purchase a timer from Amazon or Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever is more convenient for you to be able to do that without having to worry. Okay, so moving on from the type of planter, timers are essential if you travel as well. Absolutely, yes. So if you're traveling and you're going out for the weekend or things of that nature, timers are really, really good to have. Absolutely. I found a lot of success with them in our greenhouses. So moving on, after you guys decide what the perfect planter or set of planters is for you, we would like to discuss what types of soil we should be using in our indoor herb gardens. So I will give you guys an example of what I like to use. So this is Miracle-Gro brand potting mix. It specifically says indoor. I don't usually use Miracle-Gro. I like to use like more organic items when I can. However, Home Depot was mostly sold out of all types of potting mix, so I was lucky to find this. Potting mix differs from your regular run-of-the-mill garden soil. And the reason that you want to make sure you use the potting mix versus just regular garden soil has to do with air circulation. So garden soil is very good for planting outside, but it's also very, very compact, right? With the potting soil, it's a little bit lighter and less dense, so it allows your plants to get a lot more circulation in the soil. So potting soil is definitely best. If you guys...
So I have both. So let me put my video on. Mm-hmm. So right now you'll see that two different containers, two different potters of mix. So one is potting soil, and well, this one is the potting soil, and then this one is the garden soil. Other way around, guys. Potting mix, garden soil. So I just wanted to demonstrate to you like the difference between the two. And it really is, as Pamia said, the compaction. So I'm just going to pour some water into both of them. So this one is the potting mix. And like I wet it a little bit, and just pay attention to like how loose it is. Even like when I'm compacting it, it doesn't really like bulge up, right? And then I'm going to take the traditional garden soil with what we would use outside in our outdoor gardens or raised beds. So added some water to that. And like as you see it, I squeeze that and it really like lumps up. So it's not as loose, it's more dense and compact than the potting mix. So for our pots and our planters that we use indoors, or even the pots and planters that you use outdoors, you want to ensure that you select this potting soil or the potting mix. Sometimes it depends on what the brand is, what they call it, but as long as it's called potting, you want to use that because it will allow the water to drain better in that environment. And Pamia has a story about how she learned the difference between the two.
Story? What story?
No, you said that that for a while that you were using like just garden soil, like in your house plants.
Yeah, so in the beginning of like my gardening journey and my indoor plant care journey, I really did very minimal research. I was kind of just like, oh, I'm going to wing this and see how it goes. So I've kind of recently had, and in the past, had an issue with like my cats using my plants for a litter box, which we will talk about, solutions to that another day. But basically, I would have to, repot my plants often, and I would just buy, regular garden soil, and kind of like wouldn't understand why when I would water my plants, it just wouldn't drain properly. Like they would look like the plants would start to dip off to the side. They would look kind of crazy. So I kind of noticed over time that the issue that I was having was because I didn't do my research initially and I was using the wrong kind of soil. So when you guys are making your planters, whether you're doing it now, following along with us, or you plan to do it in the near future, just make sure that you pick the proper type of soil, because it's definitely going to make a huge difference when it comes to the longevity of your plants and then the general health of them, and if they're able to absorb water the way that they should, or the natural way that they should.
And we had I had a huge planter outside of my house that my previous roommate that he intended to plant with, and he used the wrong soil in there too. And over the entire summer, it just held water all summer. Hey, Xavier. And it never drained, and it became so like the smell coming from this planter. So if for no other reason, you don't want the front of like wherever you are to smell because it's not properly draining or evaporating, like use the correct soil so you don't have to deal with that. It got really gross.
Absolutely. So that's like the perfect segue to talk about drainage and drainage issues, especially indoor planter, right? So again, I'm just going to show you guys one of the planters. This is a 15-inch window box planter that I purchased this morning from Home Depot. I was very lucky to find these because it looks like gardening and you know, home plant care is really buzzing right now. So with everyone being home with the COVID-19 pandemic, you can kind of see this visually in the stores that there's not a whole lot left. I was lucky to actually find a planter today that already, as you can see, had some holes drilled into the bottom. So you can see there's like 3 on either side. And then I have the ability to make another hole in the middle here if I feel like it's necessary. So the thing about drainage is, like Latiana mentioned, it's very important when it comes to your plant's health. One thing you definitely want to make sure you don't have happen is have the roots of your plant kind of sitting in water, right? Because this can cause your roots to, you know, to rot, and you'll have different diseases that can manifest in your plants if drainage is not done well, right? So buying a planter that has these holes already placed in the bottom of it is a great way to start off. If you do not have that option, one thing that you can do is to drill holes in a plastic planter on your own. It can seem daunting if you're not handy, but Latiana and I have done it, so we can promise that, like, you know, anybody can do it. I just wanted to show you guys how to kind of like do that. So one of the things that I looked into and purchased was something called a drill bit that has a paddle on it. So I don't know if you guys can kind of see this like visually, but this is just your standard run-of-the-mill drill. You can insert this bit into your drill, and it has this sharp portion on the end with a paddle so that you don't go completely, you know, through your box as you're drilling. One thing to keep in mind when you do that, however, is to obviously do it in a safe space and to have, you know, maybe some soil underneath you. If you can do it outside, that would probably be the best way to drill a hole in your planter. I know Latiana has another type of paddle drill that she can visually show you guys. The one that I have is a 1/2 inch, and it has actually a ridged screw on it, and Latiana can show you another option as well that she has.
Here's the other option that we have on our other drill. This is also a 1/2 inch paddle, but it just doesn't have the ridge. It's flat, but it creates like and how it works is it spins and it creates a hole. Like that's the width of this this drill bit.
Other type of planter that I showed you guys in the beginning of our class, you can just have like a regular pot. These I actually purchased from Home Depot also. I think they were like $1.99 a piece. And they also have built-in drainage. I hope you guys can kind of see this. So this piece at the bottom, it doesn't detach, but you can kind of feel that it's movable. And so if you have excess water, this is kind of like a built-in drainage system without placing anything additional under the pot for draining holes. So I do like these as well if you guys wanted to go with the individual planters for each herb versus a longer box. Another thing that you can do to make sure that you have proper drainage is to lay different stones or rocks in the bottom of your planter. And I think Latiana also has an example of that, so you guys can visually see what that looks like as well.
Yeah, so another method that I use, particularly for my indoor plants, because I've just now like been more comfortable with like drilling holes into planters. In the past, I've even taken like a nail and a hammer and drilled holes into planters. But one thing that I've done for my indoor plants in particular, and actually some of my plants out here, is I use stones. So if you use stones and put those at the bottom of your planter, they also, and like a good layer of them, they also create some space for drainage for your roots. So, and if you don't have stones, and these are just like stones that I bought from the dollar store, but you can always also use broken plates or broken glass, like something that will create some space and some air at the bottom layer of your plant. So what might be famous is like the terracotta pot that you might have that's randomly in pieces. Crack it open, send it to pieces, and then put it at the bottom
I think Latiana may have froze. Oh, there she is. She's back. Okay, yeah. So that's a great idea that Latiana mentioned, and also just a way to repurpose things. We're always trying to like go green and keep things out of the trash can. So if you have some broken terracotta pots, like she mentioned, it would be a great way to repurpose them if you don't want to actually go out and buy rocks. One thing I can say about us is we're always looking to save money and repurpose things. So that's something that you guys can try on your own. So we're going to move into now what types of herbs are actually good for our indoor planters, right? So one of the types of herbs, if you guys have ever heard of this, is called the dwarf varieties. So what this means is many different culinary herbs, rosemary, thyme, basil, mint, et cetera, come in something called a dwarf variety. So these varieties kind of grow more compactly. I would kind of liken it to a pole bean versus a bush bean, right? So bush beans, for example, kind of grow like compactly and together like this, while pole beans kind of grow up and like need some like vertical space. So when it comes to dwarf varieties versus your run-of-the-mill herb varieties, dwarf varieties are great for container planting because you don't have to worry about them growing so wildly up and out, right? They're kind of going to grow compactly and the volume is going to be more dense, just growing kind of like in a circular fashion. So dwarf varieties of many herbs are available at nurseries, Home Depots, Lowe's, things like that. For anyone who's starting them from seed today, they obviously can be started from seed as well. And they, like I said, they fit really well into a window box environment. So today I actually...
And if you don't have any dwarf varieties or you weren't able to find them in seed or plant, it's okay because the planter or the size of the pot will also dictate how big or how high your plant grows. So ideally and aesthetically, the dwarf variety would be best, but do not let that discourage you if you cannot find it.
Right, exactly. So some of the best herbs for growing indoors, we kind of listed 7 different herbs for you guys today to kind of try out on your own and see how you like them. And these, again, are culinary herbs. So the whole idea is to have them close to you and close to the kitchen so that when you're cooking, you're more likely to use them, right? These herbs also don't have to just be used for cooking. They can be used, you can dry them, you can make your own teas. We've also explored making, different traditional medicines from different cultures. So, let your mind run wild, do as much research as you like to on your own. There's so many different things you can do with fresh and dried herbs. It's incredible. So get creative. So again, going into the different types of herbs you guys can look to use. One of the most popular herbs is basil. I love basil. It comes in many different forms. You have, normal basil, which is kind of like Italian. You have purple basil, red basil. My personal favorite is something called holy basil, which I'm going to show you guys here today. It has some very unique properties to it. But basil is kind of like that #1 herb that people like to grow in their container gardens.
And what I have in my window box that sits on my step, and I'll bring that over in a second, I have a sweet basil variety and Thai basil. And I've grown Thai basil over the years. This might be my 3rd season or so. And it kind of has like a licorice smell to it, but if you cook or you aspire to cook Thai foods or Asian foods, like that's a good addition to your culinary repertoire.
Yes, absolutely. And going back to the holy basil, I'll just show you guys really quickly what it looks like. Again, it's like one of my favorite things in the whole world. Holy basil, there's been a lot of research done on this, and if you guys look it up on your own, you can kind of find some conflicting stories. Some studies have said maybe, some studies have said maybe not, but many people believe that holy basil has the ability to remove fluoride from water, from tap water. So it has like these amazing filter properties that some varieties of basil do not have. I just thought that was an interesting tidbit. The next herb that people really love to grow indoors, me personally, is oregano. Oregano comes in many different varieties also. I personally like it. It has kind of like a I'm sorry, I've been muted. So I'm going to go back. I think the last thing you guys heard me talk about was the holy basil, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the next herb that we're going to be talking about is oregano. So oregano is also a very popular herb, fresh or dried. If you've ever had anything Italian, you probably tasted oregano before. I personally like it because it kind of has a spicy kick to it. I'll just like pick some oregano off of my planter sometimes, just like pop it in my mouth. It's really, really good for you. It's high in B6, potassium, copper, vitamin A, vitamin C. It's just kind of like a miracle herb, if you will. Another great herb is rosemary. I don't have any physical rosemary to show you guys here today. I think Latiana may have rosemary left.
Yes, I have rosemary. Let me show, because I had brought over the basil box. So here's the basil. So this is the sweet basil, and this is the Thai basil. And then I'll walk over to my steps, which is like my little herb garden, to show you the rosemary. It's so hot over here. Can we see it? Yes, so there's my rosemary here. Can you see it, Pamia?
Yes, it looks really good. It's growing well.
Thank you, thank you.
Another herb that's very similar to rosemary and that's in the rosemary family is thyme. Thyme is also another herb that grows really well in indoor boxes. I also don't have a visual representation for any thyme here for you guys today. I'm not sure if Latiana does, but it looks very similar like to rosemary. It's one of those woody herbs that kind of grows I would say like elongated leaves, like more like needle-like leaves, and it has a very, very beautiful aroma that kind of reminds me personally of Thanksgiving. It's beautiful. Thyme and rosemary are herbs you eat around your turkey during Thanksgiving time. So moving on from thyme, what was that?
I said I don't have thyme anymore. I've been growing it for years, and I stopped growing it this year. I was like, I need to let this plant go.
Sometimes switching out is good. So the next of my favorite herb list is mint. So mint also comes in many, many different varieties. I actually, outside of my home now, I have some mint that this is probably like the 5th or 6th year that it's grown back. It comes back every year. It's very easy to grow. It's low maintenance. And like I said, it comes in many different varieties. You have spearmint, you have peppermint, you have chocolate mint. There's so many different types that you can enjoy. And mint and basil are also in the same family, so they share some of the same properties. They have like this cooling ability. I recently discovered that I've been outside working a lot, and I've gotten a lot of mosquito bites. And one of the cool things that I read in one of my books was that one thing that you can do is kind of like chew on a little piece of mint if you have a mosquito bite, and you can rub it on that bite, and the cooling effects from the menthol properties that this plant has actually just calms it down and helps it not itch and hurt so bad. I tried it out for myself, and it actually works. It works really well. The only thing that kind of sucks about it is that it doesn't last long. It might like give you, that cooling effect for 1 or 2 minutes, and then you would have to reapply. But it's definitely a natural option that works well. I think I have a question.
Yes, there was just a comment that like, what about herbal compatibility? Not all herbs grow well together. And yes, like we are very mindful about essentially companion planting. So not all plants grow well together, and sometimes that can be just because of how the plants grow themselves and where you place them in the planter or the box. Some might grow tall, some might grow wide, and you want to ensure that they all have the space that they need to grow well.
Right, exactly. So just to piggyback off the conversation that we have, there was just one tidbit I wanted to share with you guys about a study that was done last year on mint. And basically what it says was that during the study, they showed that peppermint oil can be used as a remedy for a range of gastrointestinal issues and conditions that people have. This includes IBS, stomach upsets in children, and feelings of sickness after surgery. So if anyone that you know, or if you yourself have gone through any of these things, mint that you grow at home can be, a remedy for some of these ailments. I just thought that was very interesting. So moving on from mint, our last herb that we're going to be discussing today is lemon balm. So lemon balm is also one of my favorite plants. I've been growing some inside for years now. I use it a lot for infused water. It makes very, very good infused drinks. Sometimes people even put them in ice cubes, have them sit in the freezer and use them like as refreshers for, drinks at barbecues during the summer. So lemon balm can also be used as a tea as well. I've used it, literally just use it with some hot water, maybe like a little honey or sugar if you like, and it makes a very great infused tea. It can be used as a natural herbal tranquilizer also for people that have nervous conditions. That infusion can be prepared by using fresh or dried leaves and just placing them in the boiled water. So the lemon balm is a really aromatic plant, and it's also related to mint as well. Some of the functions of lemon balm also include reducing anxiety and stress, boosting cognitive function, relieving indigestion, and helping to treat nausea.
There's another comment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, are you done with lemon balm?
Yeah, I was just going to say we're going to be planting the lemon balm, the mint, and the oregano together.
Okay. So yes, there's another comment that mint should be on its own since it spreads a lot, and she thinks the same for like lemon balm and isolate them in their own containers. And yes, that mint does spread. And I typically will tell people, so I either will put mint in its own container, or if you do put it in a container that's shared, just know that that'll help to minimize the growth of mint. Because mint, I've had people say like mint grows like weeds. It'll just keep growing and growing and growing. So where I have my mint in the front of my house, I actually have it in a repurposed tire. And there's mint and the oregano grows together, and that's been coming back every year for probably about like 5 or 6 years as well. And they do really well together to manage the growth.
Nice. That was a good point. Absolutely. So just to kind of rehash some of the things that we've been talking about as I actually do this demonstration for you guys. So you guys have already decided on what kind of plants for you. Today we're going to be doing the individual planters since we're growing things in the mint family. So this can hopefully give them a chance to spread out just a little bit more. I'm actually going to just visually show you guys what we have here again today. So this was that holy basil that we discussed. This actually produces really pretty flowers also. My lemon balm, I just have to pre-warn you guys before I show it to you. Got a little outside. It was watered well, like as you can see, but a lot of the leaves got a little burnt. It was in direct sunlight for a couple days, but it's not dead. You can see that there's a lot of growth still at the bottom. So we have our lemon balm as well. And the variety of oregano that I have here today is, this is a Greek oregano. So I think that this is really pretty. It kind of has like these woody stems, as you can see. And it's a variation between like this purple, brown, and green in the leaves that I also think is quite beautiful. So
and that's
again,
what I find to be the beauty of plants and growing things, that they are, I say all the time that plants are so resilient. No, do not use the entire seed packet. I'll get back to that, Mary. Plants are so resilient, and that even sometimes when it appears that they are on their last leg, they will come back. So don't give up on your plants so quickly. Sometimes they're just dead, but a lot of the times, like if you see a hint of some life or some growth, you can nurture it back to life.
Yes, absolutely. So been plants in the past that I thought were dead, but just after giving them, you know, a different set of scenery or like some extra nutrient or some extra compost or something like that, I've seen many plants come back to life. However, sometimes they don't, you know, and it's kind of sad when we're plant mamas, when we have to give up on our babies. But, you know, when it works, it doesn't, it doesn't. That's part of, like Latiana said, the beauty of gardening and learning as you go. So again,
Pamia, before you start with the plants, can I do the seeds so I can like walk Mary through the seeded part?
Sure. Absolutely, go ahead.
So let me grab my gloves. So I have some seeds. I decided to plant seeds with you, Mary. So because I don't have thyme anymore, I'm going to plant some thyme. And I have, as I said, I have this tin can and I don't have a drainage hole. So I decided to use some rocks at the bottom of my planter. And I have my potting soil. So you can fill the pot up or the planter up like almost like 2/3 of the way with your soil. And don't compact it, make sure that it remains loose. And you can do it like with your hand. You can make and if you're doing, I'm assuming, because I think I saw pots for you, Mary. So you're going to be putting one type of seed or plant into each pot. So just make a small indentation in the center of your planter with your finger, like about a 1/2 inch down. And anyone else who's following along. So rocks for drainage, potting soil for life and environment, and then we're going to add the seeds. So we have a whole other class that kind of teaches you how to read a seed packet and like all of the great information that's on there. But just for time's sake, one way to determine how many seeds or to make a decision on how many seeds to use, you really want to start with looking at the size of the seed. So do not put in all situations, never put the entire seed package into your soil. So the thyme, let me see, this is a pretty small seed. Yeah, I'm not even going to be able to show you really, but the thyme is like almost microscopic. Like that's the thyme seed. It's very, very small. So the smaller the seed, the more seeds you want to put into that space, because you want to give yourself and your plant the opportunity to grow, because sometimes some seeds don't sprout and you just want to ensure the success of your plant. So I would say, so as I showed you, my thyme seeds are very, very small. So I'm probably going to put like 10 seeds in here, but you don't have to do that many. So you can do like 4 to 5 seeds, but I have like about 10 seeds already in my hand. So if they're very, very small, 4 to 5 seeds, like sometimes like beans are really large. They're not an herb, but just to give you an example of different sizes, beans are really large. So you would usually only put like 1 to 2 seeds into your pot. So put like a handful, so like 4 to 5, 4 to 6 seeds into your pot. So I'm going to put those into my hole that I made. And then I'm going to lightly cover. You're not going to be able to see the seeds because they're so small, but I'm just going to fill in the hole. So just lightly covering it. And then the next step would be to water it. And now I'm going to send it back over to Pamia so she can show you all how to transplant a plant into your pot.
Thank you, La.
You're welcome.
So for those of you who are following along now with pre-purchased plantlings, or that you plan to do it in the future, this is going to be the technique to do that. So again, we're making sure that we're using potting mix and not garden soil. Again, just to reiterate, potting mix is going to make it so that your plants have good airflow, and that when you water them, that the soil density doesn't become very, very compact and inhibit your plant's ability to soak up the water that it needs to grow. So what we're going to do is the same thing that Latiana just did, and we're going to fill that pot, like she said, about 2/3 of the way up with our potting soil, making sure that we're not like packing it down. or making it, you know, super, super compact. So just to show you guys, many planters have kind of like this line around the edge. You can kind of go up to that line and it'll usually leave like 1 or 2, maybe 3 inches so that you have space to actually plant your plant. So the first one that I'm going to do with you guys is going to be this holy basil. So I already pre-wet like the roots. And the reason you want to do that is just make sure that you're not putting a dry plant directly into the soil, and it kind of just gives them a head start to be able to start to drink up in their new home. So you can kind of gently squeeze around the compact little roots here just to kind of get them separated so that they can adhere to the new soil that they're going to be in. If you guys have a hand trowel today, you can use that to make the indentation inside your pot. So looking at how much space we have here in the root area, I would say that's probably about 2 inches. So we want to dig about 2.5 inches into our pot. Give us a little space. And I usually don't work with garden gloves. I'm just kind of doing it to show what you guys should be doing. For me personally, I like to have my hands in the earth, and it kind of gives me that connection that I love. But you can use gloves as well if you're picky about what your hands are being exposed to. So just to show you guys, that's how the plant is going to look inside the pot when you place it in there. And that's exactly how deep this should be. I'm actually going to add just a little tiny bit more soil on the top, just because you want to take a look at it and see if any of the roots are still exposed. And we're going to make sure that we don't have any exposed root. Just put a little bit more soil there. So that was our lemon balm. So we have our lemon balm ready, and we're just going to do that again with our oregano. Oh, I'm sorry, that was our holy basil. We're going to do it with our lemon balm and our oregano as well. So one thing you can also do with the roots, if you have a sprayer or just a spritz bottle, obviously you want to make sure that it's clean and it has never had any chemicals in it. You can find these at the dollar store. And when you have your plantlings, you can actually just go ahead. I had already pre-done this before the class started, but you can just go ahead and spray those roots down. As you can see, these have been outside, so I have some roly-polies on them, and bugs aren't always bad. Bugs can be pretty good. So we're gonna go ahead and do our next pot. I chose to do 3 different herbs today, just because I think like 3 should be the minimum when you're talking about, you know, what kind of or how many culinary herbs you want to have available to you in your kitchen. I think a minimum of 3, maybe 3 to 5 is a good start. So we're gonna go ahead and do our lemon balm next. As you can see, this lemon balm is actually still in the cardboard that it came in. So some people don't remove this cardboard because it is like biodegradable, and eventually your roots can, you know, start to grow through the bottom. But for me personally, I kind of like to take that cardboard out if you can. And it doesn't have to be completely removed. You can just do, you know, your best. Because as you can see, we already have roots that are growing out of the bottom of the cardboard already.
Pamia, there's a question. Do the herbs ever get gnats or a bad infestation, and is there a way to combat that naturally?
Yeah, so I mean, herbs, especially if you're buying them from a garden center or a nursery, they can come with some pests. So these herbs I've had outside for almost, I want to say like about 10 days now. So they do have a bunch of different like roly-polies and different things on them. I kind of inspected them. And any plant, this is something to remember. I'm glad you guys asked this question. So any plant that you bring inside your house, you want to make sure that you're kind of inspecting it right off the bat to see if it has any sign of disease or parasites or anything like that. Because one thing you'll notice is that they can kind of like propagate like really quickly. And especially if you have different herbs in one planter, they can like jump from plant to plant. So upon buying something from a nursery, or if someone has gifted you a plant, you want to make sure you inspect it so that if it doesn't have any visible diseases, you want to make sure you don't bring that plant inside your house. So when it comes to different pests, there are different natural pest controls that you can use. What was the one that was asked about, Latiana? I can't see the...
They asked about gnats. And gnats typically wouldn't be like one of the things that would infest or congregate around herbs, just because so I'd say this, unless the herb is rotting, like the soil is rotting because there's not proper drainage, but gnats wouldn't necessarily be what's attracted to herbs because of the property of herbs. They're different than, let's say, like a rotting fruit or like an overripe fruit. But I haven't had any infestation of plants indoors, honestly.
Yeah, I haven't had any, and I think specifically is because many herbs like naturally have pest repellent like properties. Right. Many of these herbs pair well in companion planting with different plants because it keeps, you know what I mean, a lot away. So I haven't had any like issues with that. I have had some issues with gnats, however, and that's because I kind of do my own compost from juicing and things of that nature. So if you see that there's a lot of gnats around your plant, that's gonna be kind of a red flag that you have some material either on your plant or in the plant that may be rotting, because gnats are naturally attracted to, you know, vegetables and fruits that are breaking down. So it would be time to then, you know, kind of check your plant and check your soil and make sure that you're too raw, broken down.
And one of the things that I've done to combat gnats, not because of plants, but just because sometimes we have gnat infestations in our home. I think it was like apple cider vinegar, and like this, you can do it like in a top or some sort of cup or something, and they're attracted to the vinegar, or you can create like a sort of sweet trap and they'll collect in that water or the liquid, and then you can die. So that would be a natural way.
Yes, I've done that before, and it actually works really, really well. You just have to make sure you kind of like change it out often, you know what I mean? Because that is not like a fun smell to have in your home. I think I don't know if there was another question or a comment.
Just a comment that she's had a succulent that has gotten bugs before.
Okay. Yeah, succulents that's one thing I've never really had a lot of success with on a personal end. Like succulents can be kind of finicky, like, and it depends on the, you know, the conditions you live in, if you live in a dry environment or not, and when to water them or not. They don't really need a lot of water, but I've always overwatered them. So we're going to be placing our third plant into the container, and this one is that Greek oregano we were talking about. Again, look at how beautiful that is in the starter plant with all of these beautiful colors. Gonna go ahead and place that one in the pot. Again, this is going in about 2 to 3 inches deep, and we're gonna lightly place a little bit more soil around it for any exposed roots. There's a lot of roly-polies in here. And those are good for aeration in the soil as well. And they don't really damage your plant. So that's the oregano. That's how that looks. Again, this was the holy basil being planted in its individual container. And this was that lemon balm that we're going to try to revive and bring back to life. So moving on from, seems the perennial herbs need more. Can you read that one to me, La? That last comment?
Yes. It seems that the perennial herbs need more moisture and the annual prefer the dryness. What do we do with the rest of the seeds? So as regarding the seeds, you can save them in your packet. Seeds actually, especially if you store them well, they'll last for a couple of years. So you can keep them in the packet and keep them dry and just put them, maybe put them in a Ziploc bag.
That's all great ideas. What I do when I can, with my seeds, if I know I want to keep them for, if I'm not going to use them right now and I want to keep them for longer, another option is to put them in like mason jars, you know, like with glass containers. Usually with glass and seeds, it holds them really well. If you are in the mindset of harvesting like your own seeds, one thing to keep in mind is to make sure that they're fully dry before you put them in any kind of container, because they'll start to mold and, you know, they won't be viable after that point. So now that you have your plants in your planter and you have spritzed it, or you have put a little bit of water inside of it to get it started, another thing that I want to talk to you guys about is making sure that you're actually, outside of just caring for the plant, you're harvesting it, right? So with this holy basil, for example, I'm not going to pop the top of it off of it right now, but one of the things you can do to harvest your plant frequently is you can use pruners as it gets larger, or you can just use your hands to kind of pop off the tops of like basil or oregano or mint. And what this does is it keeps it from bolting prematurely, and it keeps it growing and propagating more and more. So I'm saying that to tell you guys, if you just kind of plant your plants and you just let them go and you don't use them, you're not going to get a good yield, right? So the more you use them, as long as you're not over picking them, it's going to be good for your plant, and you're going to have more to pick from in the future.
And some of our other, I don't want to call them clients, but people that we work with who have grown herbs, they've been shown hesitance with pruning their plants. Sorry guys, I'm just looking. I have an 18-month-old and he is in a water table. So if y'all want to see what he's doing. So I'm trying to make sure that he stays okay. But when you want to prune your plants and you want to pick the mature leaves as well, like as you go and you intend to cook with them because they're culinary herbs, pick the ones that are most mature. So when you think about pruning, you want to think about it from two different perspectives. Pruning from the top to encourage it to keep producing leaves, but then also as you prune them, prune the ones that are most mature. So for basil, that might look like the ones that are the largest for like when you're using them to cook or to eat or for medicine.
Yes, absolutely. And I wanted to bring up the point of watering your herbs consistently, like also. So for certain herbs, they like very well drained soil. And those type of herbs are like thyme and oregano and rosemary. When it comes to others like mint and lemon balm, they prefer a little bit more moisture. So that's something to consider also when you're considering what to plant together or what not to. Like again, these individual planters are a really good option if you're not really sure. And the larger planters are when you've done like a little bit more research. So you also want to make sure that you're feeding your plants occasionally also. So what this means is you want to promote like healthy growth for your new herbs. So you can feed them with a suitable fertilizer. You can find those at any garden nursery. They come in spray form, they come in pellet form. And which one you use would depend on your personal preference. Latiana and I both now and in the past have used things like eggshells. As they break down, they offer some major nutrients for your soil. Something I do, I juice every morning. So I always have a lot of waste from the juicer. A lot of that like fibrous material. And so I'm always putting that in my compost container, and I usually feed my herbs and my vegetables from that broken down food waste as well. So that's another good idea.
So
have you tried coffee grounds, Latiana? I'm not a coffee drinker, so I know that some people like have boasted that they had great success with it. But I wasn't sure because I haven't personally tried that.
Yes, I'm not a coffee drinker either, so I haven't tried it, but the internet says that coffee for indoor plants in particular offers some great nutritional properties for plants.
Right. Absolutely. So just to kind of like recap the things that we talked about with you guys today. So the key things that we kind of want you to take away from this when it comes to when you actually want to put together your own home kitchen garden. So the number one thing was picking the right container, right? So that's based on obviously where you're going to place your herb garden and the light that you get versus, you know, not, or where you're going to put your LED lights, etc. The second is filling your pot with the proper type of soil. So again, we're talking about potting soil. We're not talking about mulch. We're not talking about garden soil or any of the other big bags you might see in some of these stores. We're going to go with a high quality potting soil. Next is harvesting regularly. So just like Latiana mentioned, you want to make sure you're harvesting like mature leaves. You're going to harvest the leaves again right at the top here to promote additional growth. And this is going to make you be able to utilize your indoor garden to its maximum benefit. After that is watering consistently. If you're new to herb gardening, you can do a little bit more research on your own if you like with what you are particularly growing. But like I said, there's certain herbs that like really well-drained soil, and then there's certain herbs that like more moisture. So you can kind of, you know, do what you need to do based on what you're growing. Do you use to hydrate them, freeze, hang? What was that question?
Do you use like a dehydrator to dry them or hang them, or how do you store them for other than fresh use?
So that's a really good question. So for what I do, and I think Latiana uses this technique as well, you do not have to have a food dehydrator at all. Like it's totally like not necessary unless there's something you really want to do. One thing you can do as your herbs grow and mature is, so for example, let me see if I have any of my dry herbs around here. I don't think I have it. Actually, I do. Hold on. Okay, so this is an example of some sage that I grew outside my home and I dried it. So what the process was very simple. I used my clippers and I clipped off a couple of the woody stems of the sage. And what I did was I took them and I hung them upside down in my home. So different herbs are going to call for a different drying process depending on the herb itself. However, sage can be dried in a dark area or a light area, and it kind of does, you know, what it needs to do. As you're hanging these upside down, it's going to make all of the moisture come down out of the plant, and it will dry over time. I would say it takes about 2 weeks to dry completely. They also sell something called herb drying racks that work really well if you have an abundance of herbs that you want to dry at one time. But this is just an example of a fully dried couple pieces of sage.
Yes, I've hung herbs from a string that I've hung on the ceiling in my kitchen, and hung them and like air dried them in the past. And bunch them up similar to like how you have that sage.
I also read somewhere that if you're following a recipe, that if you're using fresh herbs, you'll use twice as much. Is that right? To cook with?
Yeah.
The amount?
Yeah, that's the general rule of thumb. And the reason behind that is because dried herbs are more dense when it comes to like their flavors. So as the moisture leaves a plant, the flavor becomes more intense. So the fresh herbs have a fresher taste, if I can get you to understand what I'm saying, but the dry herbs are more intense in terms of the flavor.
Last question, I promise.
No, it's fine.
How long is it going to take these seeds to come up, and do I cover them with like plastic until they start to sprout?
So the time that it takes for the seeds to germinate is going to depend on what it is that you're growing. So for example, Latiana briefly talked about the proper way to read a seed packet. So anytime that you're opening up a packet, you want to make sure you read the back of it, because it's going to have a germination time on the back of that seed packet. It could be 3 to 7 days. Sometimes it could be 7 to 10 days. And it just depends on that particular herb or that particular plant. In regards to your question about covering it with plastic, yes, you can create a mini greenhouse, which will increase your chances of germination and also keep them warm if you're in an area that may not be so warm. That could be a good idea. As soon as you see that they start to sprout, you can start to lift that plastic off and start to get them acclimated into the temperature in your home. Most seedlings and herbs do really well between like 65 to 75 degrees. And some can tolerate, you know, lower or higher than that, depending on the species.
I have my time packet right here. So most packets, so this came in a larger packet of Italian culinary herbs, but like most packets will have plant the seed. So for the time, it says that it's going to take 14 to 21 days to germinate. So 2 to 3 weeks until I see anything pop up out this soil.
Yes, so just want to show you guys the visual again. And I'm just show you what it's like. I'm going to place it in my window so you can kind of see how it all ties together. Again, these are the 3 herbs that we planted today to start this new culinary herb garden for my dining room area. Just going to take it over here. But one thing you guys can kind of find out for yourself is if your windowsill is going to accommodate the planter without you opening the window. I don't really have a very large windowsill, as you can see here, so I'm going to open up this window and place them over here. And you can arrange these however you like, however is like aesthetically pleasing for you. And my window, as you guys can see here, I have more space for more if I would like to place a few more in. But these are going to do really well in this window because it gets really, really great light. And again, we're going to make sure that we are watering them properly and that we're harvesting them when it's time to harvest as they grow and get a little bit more mature. Did anyone have any more comments, or if you wanted to show us what you've been working on? Oh, I see Mary's. Oh, that was fast. She got labels made and everything. I love it. So Mary, what did you plant today?
I didn't know to get the dwarf, so I did oregano, thyme, sage, chives, and rosemary.
Lovely. Chives are one of my favorite. I love chives. Yes.
And I'm going to decoupage my seed packs once I figure out where to store them onto the pot.
Nice.
Near them on there.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you all so much. One thing on the bucket list.
Nice. Well, thank you to everybody for joining us here today. I hope that we were able to give you guys an idea of how to start your first home herb garden. Again, this can be very beneficial for you and for your family. Increasing our intake of anything fresh, herbs, vegetables, fruits is always going to be beneficial for all of us, especially in such dark times. I hope that all of you stay safe. And thank you so much for joining us. Did anybody have any additional questions or comments?
And before you all leave, I have one more thing. So it's open for questions and comments.
So it says, I'm in West Oak Lane. I have the same window, so I can't wait. Yeah, I'm in West Oak Lane also. And these older houses aren't really built with large windowsills at all. They're very small, maybe like 3 inches at the most. So that would be something to consider when you're considering your planters as well. Yes. Ebony is going to be starting hers today. Awesome. And feel free also, you guys, to tag us. You know what I mean? If you're on any social media, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, as you're starting your own home herb gardens, feel free to tag us so that we can follow you and see your trials and tribulations.
Yeah, so you can follow us online, on Facebook, social media, tag us, all the same thing, Black Girls with Green Thumbs. So today I'm going to share my screen with you all. So give me 1 second. I just want to share something about our funders and how and why we are here with you today, or how it's possible that we are here with you today. Okay. So I'm going to read the script, but our funders is actually the National Network of Libraries of Medicine, the Mid-Atlantic region. So we have we were awarded a public library grant that enabled us to really broaden our outreach and our ability to teach people and educate people on the value of gardening and how that connects to your wellness and health. So as I mentioned, like, it's funded through the National Network of Libraries of Medicine, and it's also a partner with the All of Us research program. So the National Institute of Health, they have this research program called All of Us, and it aims to build one of the largest, most diverse collection of data of its kind for health research. So the goal is to have 1 million or more diverse volunteers nationwide who will sign up to share their information over time. I think this is called, I forgot the name of what this type of healthcare is. Maybe, I think, like precision healthcare. So their goal is to understand from individuals' actual health, like how they can impact health by knowing, like, from this huge data set. So if you all are interested in getting some information about that, I'll also share that link. And so there's a link that I'll share in the chat with you for All of Us. So it's a voluntary research program. If you're interested in learning more, you can visit the website. But I also wanted to share with you that if you would like to learn some more about the medicinal properties of herbs, or anything else related to nutrition, gardening, you can visit this website. It's called Medline Plus. Most people are familiar with, like, WebMD, but Medline Plus is a very similar sort of, I'll say, like, online search engine. And it is an online health information resource that's available through the National Network of Library of Medicine. And we use this as a resource for a lot of our information and our data that we share with our students online, and when we teach in person. So I would encourage you, like, instead of going to WebMD, to try Medline Plus. It's such an enormous amount of resources, from actual, like, research papers to, like, very broad, general, easy to digest information on that website. So I also, how do I stop sharing the screen? Stop share. Okay. So I put in the chat a survey that we would like to ask you all to complete. So I did that a few minutes ago. I'll resend it, and then I'll also include the link to All of Us in case any of you all were interested in that. So I've added the link, and I'll probably email you all the survey as well. The completion of the survey will really enable us to continue to do stuff like this. It's important that we collect data, and the data, this survey in general is just asking you all if you learned anything, but, like, this sort of evaluation data really continues to support our ability to receive funding to continue to do stuff like this.
Yeah, so again,
there you go.
So you guys have the link. Again, like Latiana said, we would really appreciate it if you guys can give us some feedback so that we continue to offer these kinds of programming online for anyone all over the world to participate in. Again, thank you so much for tuning in with us today. I had fun. I hope you guys had fun as well. And stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck with your gardens.
Have a great weekend. Thank you
So much. Bye-bye.